So this is different. You know, we are here having to physically distance and wear masks because we are experiencing an unprecedented pandemic which has disproportionately hit Black and Latinx communities, and we are navigating that loss and that trauma while also navigating the layered trauma of the pandemic and the scourge that has been with us for far too long of police brutality. The pain of Black and brown folks has been delegitimized since the beginning of time. We are always having our hurt denied. We are always being talked out of our hurt. We have a Black maternal mortality crisis because Black pain is delegitimized. We have a pandemic that is disproportionately hurting Black and Latinx communities because our pain has been delegitimized when it comes to healthcare access and health disparities. And we have the pain of the brutalization and the murder of Black and brown folks because our pain has been delegitimized. Our trauma, our suffering, the injustice of it all. And what you see happening throughout this nation is unrest. And it will persist for as long as there is unrest. On full display, what you are seeing is the pain of Black folks that has been delegitimized for far too long. Acute pain because of the hurt and harm disproportionately bore by our communities that was legislated. And so today we are going to be precise and prescriptive because the hurt and harm and the injustices that have been put on us were very precise, were very prescriptive, were very targeted. And all of the community organizers, and to be clear, the community organizers who peacefully protested and demonstrated here in Boston, they honor the organizing tradition and activist tradition of our communities, which is our organizers are community builders, not destroyers. The only thing we seek to destroy and to actively dismantle is systemic racism, structural racism, systemic oppression that did not just happen, it was codified in law. The reason why there is a racial wealth gap in Boston is because of laws. Discriminatory, draconian laws. So if hurt and harm have been codified in lawmaking, then healing and justice should be codified in lawmaking. For too long, Black and brown bodies have been profiled, surveyed, policed, lynched, choked, brutalized, murdered at the hands of police officers. We cannot allow these fatal injustices to go unchecked any longer. Now, there can be no justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, or any other human beings who have been killed by law enforcement, for in a just world, they would still be alive. There, however, must be accountability. And that is what the unrest in our streets is about. Honoring the tradition, the activist tradition, the organizing, the tradition, the freedom rider tradition of which we are all beneficiaries and stewards of. And that is to organize, that is to mobilize, and that is to legislate. And Congress needs to send a clear message and act. Congressional intent is powerful. Congress must act in this moment as the conscience of our nation. And that's why Representative Omar and I have introduced a resolution to make clear that this Congress stands on the side of racial justice and ensure that those responsible are held accountable as we work to end the scourge of police brutality in our society. Now, just to historically contextualize this, the last time a resolution was introduced in the House on the issue of police brutality was by Representative Danny Davis in 1999 in the 106th Congress. That resolution never made it to the floor. We are now in the 116th Congress, and I can't even begin to approximate how many black lives we have been robbed of in that time. Congressional intent is a powerful tool. In addition to calling on the House of Representatives to condemn all acts of police brutality, racial profiling, and excessive use of force, our resolution calls for the adoption of reforms and policies at all levels of government to end these injustices, including efforts to improve oversight and independent investigations to hold individual law enforcement officers and police departments accountable. Number 2, calling on the DOJ. The DOJ, which in this moment is the absence of justice in every iteration, but calling on the DOJ to reassert its statutory authority to investigate individual instances of racial profiling, of police brutality and violence, and investigate and litigate individual law enforcement officers and police departments routinely violating civil rights. Number 3, the resolution calls for supporting efforts to establish an all-civilian review board with the authority to investigate incidents of police misconduct, to ensure community-level oversight, accountability, and disciplinary action of police officers. Number 4, our congressional resolution calls for the adoption of sound and unbiased law enforcement policies at all levels of government that reduce the disparate impact of police brutality, racial profiling, and use of force on black and brown people and other historically marginalized communities. Again, we are laying out legislative, prescriptive, precise solutions to get to healing and justice and accountability. So in addition to the resolution, we are calling for broad and sweeping reforms like the framework I laid out in my People's Justice Guarantee. And that means enacting uniform standards and restrictions on the use of force, as well as the elimination of special protections which protect police officers and departments from being held accountable in the case of brutality and abuse. I will close here. As my brothers and sisters and I have been talking to each other, we always talk, but especially in these moments. We have prayed together, we have cried together, we have organized together. We are legislating together. And I shared with them that I've been reading a lot of James Baldwin lately. And Baldwin reminds us, paraphrasing, that not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. This is the tipping point. And so next, okay. All right, well, I'll bring back my brother in service, State Representative Russell Holmes, back to the podium to continue the program. Thank you.